All right.
With 10,000 variants.
Test.
Good evening and welcome to the Fort Smith City Board of Directors meeting, regular meeting on this June the 3rd of 2025. As always, keep in mind these meetings are being televised live for our residents who cannot be with us in person. At this time, I will ask Director Rigo to give us an invocation and Director Neil Martin to lead us in the pledge.
Please bow your heads and join me in a word of prayer.
Lord, we're so grateful to come before you this evening with the opportunity to serve, the opportunity to listen, and the opportunity to make our small effort to solve problems and move things forward here in our community. We're grateful for everyone here and watching us online who takes an interest in the work we do, and we appreciate the feedback that they share. Lord, we're just so profoundly appreciative for the many blessings you shower upon our community and for the many, many wonderful opportunities we have and share together. It's in your name that we pray humbly. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Directors Rigo.
Here.
Good.
Here.
Kemp.
Here.
George Katsavas.
Here.
Christina Katsavas.
Here.
Settle.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I will ask the board if there's any item of business not already on the agenda that you would like to present for this meeting.
I do.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to transfer the hiring and firing authority of department heads to the board of directors.
Okay. Okay. Do we need a second?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll second it, man.
Okay. Any other action on that item, Madam Clerk?
We do have to have a vote, and it takes all 7 to place it on the agenda.
Okay. At this time, please call the roll.
Directors Rigo.
No.
Good.
No.
Kemp.
Yes.
George Katsavas.
Yes.
Christina Katsavas.
Yes.
Settle.
No.
Martin.
Yes.
Motion passes 4 in favor and 3 opposed. However, I'm sorry, the motion is defeated with 4 in favor and 3 opposed, so therefore the item will be placed on the next regular meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. This time, we'll ask for approval of the May 20th, 2025 regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. This time, we'll go to the first item on the agenda.
Item number 1 is an ordinance rezoning property at 1017 Cavanaugh Road. Deputy City Administrator Maggie Rice will introduce this item.
Yes, on May 13th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing to consider rezoning property located at 1017 Cavanaugh Road from residential multifamily medium density and commercial light to residential single-family duplex medium high density. And the rezoning will facilitate the construction of a duplex. A neighborhood meeting was held on April the 29th. There were no neighboring property owners in attendance. At the Planning Commission meeting, Mr. Brett Abbott was present to represent this application. There were none present to speak in favor or opposition of the item. The Planning Commission voted 7 in favor with 0 opposed to recommend the zoning map be amended.
Okay. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments on this item?
We have Crystal Klingler? For questions only? Okay, for questions only. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. This time, we will entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance with suspension of the rules.
So moved. Suspension of the rules.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please read the ordinance.
An ordinance rezoning identified property and amending the zoning map, and this is for property located at 1017 Cavanaugh Road.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll entertain questions or comments from the board. Okay. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Directors Good.
Yes.
Kemp.
Yes.
George Katsavas.
Yes.
Christina Katsavas.
Yes.
Settle.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Rigo.
Yes.
It's approved, 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
This time, we'll entertain a motion to adopt the emergency clause.
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Directors Kemp.
Yes.
George Katsavas.
Yes.
Christina Katsavas.
Yes.
Settle.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Rigo.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Motion passes, 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Item number 2, Mr. Dean.
Item 2 is an ordinance rezoning property at 7201 Texas Road. Ms. Rice?
Yes, on May 13th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing to consider the proposed master land use plan amendment to residential attached and zoning to residential multifamily medium density to facilitate the development of a duplex. A neighborhood meeting was held on May 2nd. There were no neighboring property owners that attended that meeting. At the Planning Commission, Ms. Gladys Perez was present to represent these applications. There were none present to speak in favor or opposition. The Planning Commission voted 7 in favor with 0 opposed to recommend the Master Land Use Plan map and zoning map be amended.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any citizens' comments, Madam Clerk?
None indicating.
Thank you. At this time, we entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance with suspension of the rules.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Please read the ordinance.
An ordinance amending the Master Land Use Plan map and rezoning identified property and amending the zoning map, and this is for property located at 7201 Texas Road.
Any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Directors George Katsavas.
Yes.
Christina Katsavas.
Yes.
Settle.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Rigo.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Kemp.
Yes.
Motion approved, 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
We need a motion to adopt the emergency clause. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Directors Christina Katsavas.
Yes.
Settle.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Rigo.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Kemp.
Yes.
George Katsavas.
Yes.
Motion passes 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
We go to number 3.
Item 3 is an ordinance to suspend the sewer rate increase applicable to the Town of Arkoma for a period of 21 days. This item was discussed at the May 27 study session, where the board directed staff to work with Arkoma to develop a new agreement for providing Arkoma with wholesale wastewater treatment services. That item will be pending at the next regular meeting. As the wastewater rate increase adopted earlier this year is effective and applicable to usage starting June the 1st, this ordinance suspends that increase as applicable to Arkoma pending the negotiation of a new service agreement. With that, staff will stand for questions from the board.
Okay, Madam Clerk, are there any citizens' comments on this item?
Yes, we have Joshua Johnson with the City of Arkoma, or Town of Arkoma, to answer questions, and then we also have Chris Cadelli.
Okay, Mr. Cadelli, you recognized.
Yeah, I'm just here as a concerned citizen, and it was just, it was very disappointing to hear about the Arkoma water bill being so far in delinquency, and the fact that we have, yet another instance here where the board was kept in the dark by administration. This may have been much easier to fix had it been brought to the board in a much, earlier time frame. I just, feel bad for the folks in Arkoma, and I feel bad for the taxpayers here, because this is going to have to be worked out, obviously. This is also right on the heels of the Director of Internal Audit debacle. That also was kept from the board, and as a citizen, it does beg the question, what else is being held from this board, and why hasn't the board held anyone accountable for these, this information being withheld? Thank you.
Okay. Was there any others, Madam Clerk?
None indicating.
Okay. At this time, we'll entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance with suspension of the rules.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please read the ordinance.
An ordinance to suspend the sewer rate increase for Town of Arkoma as authorized by ordinance number 18-25 for a period of 21 days.
Okay, at this time, we will hear from Director Christina Katsavas. I think you're first.
So when we first got communication from Arkoma on this, they said that each customer's bill would go from approximately $69 per month to $176 per month. So I asked our utilities department to verify that, and our utilities department is getting a different calculations. They're saying they would go from approximately $69 a month to $95 a month. That's a lot different than 176. I'd like to know where the discrepancy is in the numbers from what we're getting versus what Arkoma is getting. Is there anybody that can speak to that?
Lance is here.
I mean, surely we're not just going to take it on faith that their bills are going up to 176 a month. I think rightly so. We've done our own calculations. We've come to a different conclusion.
Yes, I provided Mr. Dingman a spreadsheet today that he can put in different usage in gallons, because they bill in 1,000 gallons. And I believe they had looked at 4,000 or 5,000 was their normal usage. And this was the sewer portion of the bill that we were looking at. We weren't looking at the total bill, but looking at just the sewer portion. And unfortunately, I don't have my computer here to look at that. It did not hit the 175, and that includes their $35 base fee. So their volume fee going up to that, if it was passed on, just that portion was passed on, and they kept their own revenue stream the same, it actually did not meet that. So I don't know where that number came from other than what we did today. Yesterday. Okay.
Right, and I don't think that we can have an accurate discussion or debate on this until we know what we're looking at for each customer in Arkoma. Is there anyone from Arkoma that can speak on how you ran your calculations and why you came to a different result than what we did?
Thank you for your time. Josh Johnson, Mayor of Arkoma, Bobby Weatherford, Vice Mayor. Bobby has done most of the calculations on this, so I'll let him provide additional detail on that. But these calculations are based on the flow in total for 2024 and then averaged out on a monthly basis, because obviously flow rates, depending on weather and other things, have varied from month to month. And so instead of looking at 1 month as a snapshot, which could give a more inaccurate reading, we took an entire year's worth of data and then broke that down as far as what the total cost was and what that would have been at the A75, and then divided out to the customers.
Yes, and I believe that if we looked at just what we're charging right now, our current bill average is about 81, 82. It probably should be a little bit higher. We did not have as much information then as we do now when we set those rates about a year ago. Should be about 85 if we really want to make our all of our ends meet. The portion we send to Fort Smith right now is about $44.56 per month per customer, which equates to about $891 based on 2024 data. If we look on data for the past 5 years, it goes up dramatically. We really believe the efforts we have done to fix our system have made significant progress. Well, is there?
Can you provide your calculations to us?
Yes, absolutely.
So Lance, from what you're hearing, are they doing their calculations differently than we do ours? Because I think what we're talking about for a similar bill for 3,000 gallons, you know, we've got nearly an $80 difference.
Yeah, so what I'm understanding they did is they looked at what their total flow cost was, and of course they have not been covering that, and they added additional costs to cover what their average flow and was for each month over the year, whereas we did a rate comparison with rate comparison, not including the catch-up for the volume that they currently are not being able to pay. So there is a discrepancy in what we ran and what I'm understanding without looking at the numbers they ran.
So what I'm trying to ascertain is, what is someone who's an Arkoma user and they're using roughly 3,000 gallons a month, what is their bill going to be?
Mr. Dingman, do you have that calculation in front of you?
Yeah, that's the 3,000 gallons a month is
At $8.75 a CCF calculates to about $95.06.
Yes. Yeah, and that would be leaving their rates the same and just based on their rate as a comparison of rate to rate. What I believe they're also looking at is increasing their current rates to help offset the volume difference that they are not paying for their I&I through that, which would increase that. Again, I haven't looked at their numbers, so I can't say for sure, but that's what I'm understanding from what they said. Once I evaluate that, I can have a better answer for you.
So if we have someone coming to us and they're saying, you know, our residents can't afford $176 a month, you know, I certainly sympathize with that because our residents have a hard time affording what they're doing now. But then when we're saying, you know, based on our calculations, it's $95 a month, that's a different thing, and that's a whole different discussion. So I think we need to come to some sort of agreement of fact before we embark on this discussion.
And I will say, if you don't mind, we did meet with these fellows from Arkoma on Friday to start those discussions, and as we work through this process to come to the board at the next regular meeting with a proposal for how we move forward, we will all understand all of the calculations and present them to you in a way that makes sense.
I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Okay, thank you. Director George Kasavage.
Wait, Lance. What is Arkoma paying now?
$2.69 a CC.
I'm sorry?
$2.69.
Okay, what's Fort Smith residents paying?
$8.45.
And they're paying $2 and
69
and Fort Smith's paying $8.
and 45 cents currently. Well, actually, I'm sorry. As of today, they're paying
With the 3.5%.
With the 3.5%, they are paying. Fort Smith residents are paying $8.75.
And who negotiated that $2 and something cents?
That goes back to Steve Park and others. I've actually been trying to track down where all of that came from, and unfortunately, those records, I'm having a difficult time finding.
So, in theory,
those.
that $2 doesn't even cover cost, does it?
The
for Fort Smith?
$2.69 would not cover treatment.
It's not covering true costs.
Correct.
Man, this is sad. I mean, you know, so when will y'all have some kind of agreement worked out?
I'll defer to Mr. Dingman on that.
So the board has asked us to have something to look at on June 17th, so that's our goal.
And will that include paying back the sewer bills at the $200,000?
We will address that as well. It's currently $149,000.
And the developer that's offering to pay their bill, has that been discussed?
That's all part of the discussion.
That's all part of the discussion. So by the June 17th, we should have something concrete.
Hopefully, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Director Rego.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted, I suppose in response to comments that were made earlier, and I want the record to reflect that, you know, the board did receive notification about the past due billing challenges that Arkoma faces, both in June of 2021 and in April of 2023. There were emails about this, so it was not something that I don't think was not shared with us. I just had a couple questions for our neighbors, if you gentlemen wouldn't mind standing up. Do you all have the responsibility for maintaining your sewer lines that are in your community?
Yes, so the, 3 metering points that flow into Fort Smith, everything behind that, including our lift station, all of the, roughly 24 miles of lines and a little over 400 manholes, all of that infrastructure is the responsibility of the city of Arkoma to maintain and develop and to repair.
Okay, thank you for sharing that with us. And then if you have sort of roughly, would you mind sharing with us, how many, how many customers do you all have sort of roughly individually?
Sure. At current, for our sewer, there are approximately 617 customers.
Okay, and again, roughly, about how many of those individual accounts are, delinquent or behind or anything like that?
I would have to check with our city clerk on how many of ours are behind. We do, just like everyone, we do have customers that aren't able to pay on time. Sure. We have, late payment agreements that we work out on that as well. But percentage-wise, I would yeah, I would be guessing if I were to give an answer on that. I apologize.
No problem. And then were you also, you'd mentioned at the study session last week that you all are also in the process of moving towards the decision to adjust rates upward for your individual users?
That's correct. We'll be looking at a rate adjustment for our users regardless of the final numbers for our, frankly, if we were to not have any increase, we would still be looking at an increase on that. But once we have an agreement in place, we'll have to take that and make the necessary adjustments.
Sure. Thank you for being here tonight.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Settle.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, gentlemen. I got to make a comment to my board members, and then I'm going to stop. So, unfortunately, this was passed in 2013, and I do apologize to the citizens because in 2013, we didn't know the consent decree was there, and we should have had a better understanding. My compadres, Andre and George, were on the board at the time, so it was passed by the board in 2013 and February 19th. So I do apologize to the citizens because it should have matched the rates of the citizens of Fort Smith. To questions of numbers, it's pretty simple. 875, 5 CCF is equal to about 3,500 gallons. 875 times the 5 plus the 434, whatever the base rate is, comes up to $50. So our citizens on a 5 CCF will pay about $50 for sewer. Calculations are 95. I don't know why we're even thinking about letting them go in lower than that, because this same board raised water rates to 150% to people outside the city. And we did it without blinking an eye. And we're talking about giving people in another city of 613 people, 613 citizens or residents, another state, have access to our sewer system that we've got a federal consent decree to get a lower rate. I think that's a wrong message to send to our public. Because if it's good for them, it should be good for everybody in the city. I represent the city of Fort Smith. I represent the citizens of Fort Smith. And to me, it's unfortunate they paid so late wrong for so long, but I shouldn't have to pay because their pipes are leaking water when it rains and we're having more flow. We have the pipes that leak, our citizens have to pay, and we're having to fix them. That's part of our consent decree. But all we're going to do is make the problem worse if they don't pay what we're paying. So I'll be against this because I think it should be everybody pays the same, and that's what we've done, and that's what I've said. If it's good for them to get a lower rate, then everybody in the city should get a lower rate.
Thank you. Director Neil Martin.
So I'm glad you answered the question about was this passed by the board. This rate was passed by the board in 2013, which I think there were 3 of you guys were on the board at the time. So it got through that. The one thing that I do believe and have thought a lot about, I was exactly where Kevin was, but I have looked at this, and if they are paying for the maintenance of their pipes, we're also, the citizens of Fort Smith are paying for the maintenance of their pipes. That goes into that $8.75 rate. So where I do have some flexibility on is that cost for maintaining pipes on the Arkoma side. So if you look at the $8.75 covers maintenance of pipes, it covers treatment, it covers conveyance, all those different things. Well, if you look at Arkoma, they're not the city of Fort Smith is not paying for maintenance of those pipes. We are paying for conveyance, and we're paying for treatment of that. So I think there's that component that I want to understand what that cost is that could potentially say, okay, that $8.75 rate, if you took out the maintenance for those pipes at that cost, what does that equate to in a rate? So that's what I want to see, and I think that's what the board was kind of talking about a little bit, and I wasn't there for the meeting on last week. But I will say this: there cannot be, should not be, an incentive to live outside of the city of Fort Smith with services that we provide. So, we had a developer come and say, hey, we're going to put 175 homes in Arkoma. I want those homes in Fort Smith. I don't want to offer an incentive to another city, even though we're partners. I don't want to offer an incentive. So this rate has got to be equitable. It's got to be good, but it can't just be giving sewer services away. So I'm gonna vote for this, but we really have to have a good understanding of what that rate may look like. If you come back to me with $3 as a rate for them, I'm gonna say, no way. No way that even gets there. So our utilities department's got to do a good job of looking at what that rate would be, bring it to the board, and then we will have a good discussion about that. But I'm interested in hearing what that rate's going to look like.
Thank you very much. Director Christina Casavage, and then we'll go to Director Kemp.
Jeff, do we have any idea what that rate's going to look like?
We don't. We are looking to ratchet specifically our cost of providing services to the city of Arkoma, and that'll be a starting point in terms of if it's less than $875.
So I understand Director Martin's point about they're doing their own maintenance. If we're discounting for that, I can understand that. But with 80% water loss, I don't know that they are doing the maintenance. I mean, would that not indicate that the maintenance is not being done?
Well, there certainly is. That's a problem on their water side. We're certainly looking at the wastewater side, where they do provide a larger volume of wastewater to us through their flow meters. That is much higher than what they're billing their customers for using water. So there is I&I deficiencies on their wastewater collection system as well.
I know there was discussion on this last week. I was unable to attend. I was on vacation with my family. I believe Director Martin was out as well. We weren't there for that discussion, but when I rewatched it, I didn't hear it come up anywhere in the discussion that the numbers weren't accurate, that the 176 a month we were presented with was not in fact accurate. And so I don't know how fruitful that discussion was when the numbers were skewed. I mean, I understand how to do the calculation. I understand how they shake out. I just didn't understand why that wasn't addressed last week. I will say we've got good people here. We've got a good community here. We want to be good neighbors. We want to help. I'm not unsympathetic to Arkoma. I just don't think that we're in a financial position, or where we are with the consent decree to provide the help that you're looking for. So I'm going to be a no on this tonight. Thank you.
Director Kemp.
Thank you, Mayor. I share the idea that we don't need to subsidize a municipal government. And I understand that Director Settles talked about when the decision was made, he regrets making that decision. And I think things came to obviously because of that, signing the consent decree, there was a big change in the city government here for us. Where I guess I'm at is I want to be careful how I phase that to my neighbor and not create the same anxiety. I'd like to see the numbers just like Director Christina Casavas has said. I'd like to see our real calculations based on that. And I would like to see, as Director Martin's talked about, a credit for the work that has been done on their side or the work that will need to be done. And maybe perhaps even in there needs to be an agreement of milestones to be achieved in the future so that this can be evaluated, and perhaps it's also not giving a long term to the agreement so that this can be revisited in timely manners, but giving credit where credit is due. I know Lance acknowledged last week that the improvements that they have made to the sewer system have improved within the wastewater conversation. So I think we need to give them some credit where credit's due, but I definitely agree $3 is not an acceptable rate. We have to be somewhere there, giving credit for their infrastructure, but not subsidizing another municipal government while we need to be doing the business that we need to do. So I will be voting in favor of this discussion, and I do like that we put 21 days on this because I don't think we need to drag our feet. Thank you.
Mayor, I have a
Okay.
follow-up.
Okay. Let me go.
Yeah, go
to,
ahead. I'm sorry.
Director Neil Martin, Director Good, and then we'll go to Director
Okay.
George Casavage.
Lance, so the way I understand it, the 3.5% rate increase goes into effect June 1st for the citizens of Fort Smith.
Yes.
What from a technical standpoint, like I don't even know if I want to call it the IT side, but the billing side, that's probably better. How much work goes into play to adjust or keep billing as it is today when you've got a 3.5% rate increase coming for everybody else?
Because they have their own billing rate, We just don't utilize the new billing rate
So you can
for
just
them.
keep that entered into the system? Okay, so there's not really
Is my understanding, yeah. The one thing is if we do not reach an agreement by the 21st, and the board decides to not extend the grace period, but to end it on the 21st, I will have readers that will have to go out on Sunday the 22nd to get that reading so that we can end that period, and then under the new rate would be added in. So that may take a little bit of extra computational power.
Okay, and just to clarify something that Director Kemp said, not that you said anything, but I wanted to make sure the citizens hear this. No such $3 has been thrown out there. That was just a hypothetical that I put out there in saying that if that was presented to me, there's no way I'm going to agree to that. So
In my presence, there has never been a $3
100%.
mark put.
I just want to make sure that everybody knows that number hasn't been thrown around and talked internally, and citizens haven't heard it. That number doesn't exist.
No.
So, thank you.
Director Good?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in agreement with Director Martin on the discount for Arkoma because they do maintain their own sewer lines as well as the lift station. You know, when we talk about our rates, you know, we've talked about just what's been discussed already. We talk about the cost to provide and produce, the maintaining of the lines, conveyance, treatment, all that goes into our rates. They are not subject to everything that we're doing right here. But again, like Pastor Kemp, I'm not saying that we need to subsidize Arkoma at all, but because they are not using, you know, city-provided lines and maintenance, I believe that we should consider that as a discount. And as far as the 2013 passage of the rates, you know, I can't really recall the calculations of why we chose that rate, but I guarantee you, board members didn't say, hey, let's go and let's do this. So whatever was going on with Fort Smith rates and Arkoma rates, I'm sure it was discussed before the decision was made. Whether it was the right or wrong decision then, we can only look back now and say, you know, well, you know, maybe we shouldn't have done it. But again, I don't remember the facts of why we did it, but it was board approved. So I'm sure there was quite a bit of discussion before those rates were calculated on. And as far as, you know, the discussion tonight, you know, great discussion, but, you know, the board last week asked administration to work with the mayor and vice mayor in Arkoma to resolve this issue, to come to some kind of middle grounds. So regardless of the input, the conversation will continue, but at least administration and Arkoma hears what the board has on our minds.
Okay, thank you. Director George Casavas.
Lance?
Yes, sir.
This is just suspend this rate increase for 21 days.
Correct.
Okay, if that fails, then what happens?
On the 22nd, the rate will go to the 875, and that's where we'll have to go out.
If this fails?
No, if this fails, it goes to 875 right now.
What do you mean right now, like tomorrow?
Like yesterday, well, actually Sunday, because Sunday was the 1st. This would suspend it from June 1 to June 21.
If they don't reach an agreement, it's just going to go up to.
Well, I mean, that's dangerous territory for them. 875, I mean, we waited 3 years to get this information. I don't think 21 days is going to hurt to see what we can work out. You think? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Lance.
You're welcome.
Director Christine Casavas.
Lance,
Yes, ma'am.
so just to be clear, what you said earlier, it cost us about $8.75 a CCF, or however they're figuring it, to provide service to them.
That is the initial estimate, yes, and that does include, to Director Martin's point, the maintenance of all lines and that. So there may be some room to reduce that slightly.
Slightly? How slightly?
We're going to have to look at actual linear feet of pipe and force main that they utilize of the city, so that I can't give that right now.
I will add to that that there is a number out there that is a cost for us to provide this service to the town of Arkoma. Lance and Andy have started that conversation as to what components to sort of figure into that cost to determine what our actual cost is to provide the service.
What's the cost?
We
is it
haven't
secret?
finished that yet. We haven't
It's not
finished
a
it yet.
secret.
Oh, okay.
They're working at it.
All right.
Okay.
So, you know, I just want to be clear that anything less than that cost is a subsidy, correct?
I would say yes.
Anything less than our cost to provide to them is the citizens of Fort Smith subsidizing Arkoma.
I would not disagree with that at all.
Thank you.
Director Neil Martin?
Well, help me out here, because I'm not in for a subsidy.
No, we are not looking at subsidies.
And if 875, anything less than 875 is a subsidy, explain that to me. Explain why you would say that.
So to your point, when I looked at that, I looked at a system-wide cost. Okay, so everybody pays a system-wide cost. However, to your point, when they're maintaining their system and they're only utilizing certain lines, certain pump stations, only one of the treatment plants, you can't normalize the cost. And this was something that Andy pointed out that may change the cost. Now, here's the rub in that. That cost, because all their flow goes to P Street, and P Street uses more electricity and all of that, may actually, that 875 could go up. It could go down. So we're going to take a in-depth dive into the actual full cost of service minus the maintenance of the system, so the conveyance, which is the pumping, storage, all of that.
Treatment.
And treatment. And from what I could tell, if I've answered your question, I do have one thing I'd like to address with Mr. Settle at the end of this.
Okay. I don't know if you've addressed my question.
Okay.
Because, so maintenance and installation of pipes, conveyance, transport, treatment.
Yes.
And there's probably some other things in there, but these are kind of the major components. For them, they are paying already in their town for the maintenance and laying of pipe.
Up until it gets to Fort Smith.
Up until it
yes.
gets to Fort Smith. And then once it gets to Fort Smith, it's transport, conveyance, and treatment. So would there not be a prorated amount that would take out the cost of them performing the maintenance and laying of their own pipe, which our people pay in that 875 for our pipes?
So I see where you're going, but we also have to take into account that we've done capacity upgrades. So we have actually laid additional pipe to handle the capacity coming from Arkoma,
Okay.
so that we eliminated sanitary sewer overflow by doing that.
Okay.
So that was a one-time deal. It's good for 50 years. I can get with Andy, and Andy is an expert on depreciation.
Okay.
So that needs to be factored in as well. So could that cost go down? Because once that pipe's in there, it's good for 50 years. It's a done deal, so to speak. Yes. But, looking at maintenance costs to the Mill Creek Pump Station, the EQ Basin, and looking at their percentage of flows that go to P Street. So we have to look at that percentage that P Street is treating as well, could adjust slightly up or down the cost for providing service.
Okay. Well, I will not be in favor of a subsidy.
And I agree with you on that. As a citizen who lives in Fort Smith, I am for agreement.
Right. So that was a good question, and I appreciate your answer. I did not necessarily see it that way, so I'll be very interested to see what the calculation comes to be, and making a decision on that.
Okay. If I may, Mr. Mayor, there was question about the 2013 agreement. I do not know where the original came from. I have not been able to track down that information other than the original ordinance, but I will state that in 2015, 16, and 17, the same percent increase that was given to the citizens was put on the Arkoma. So where they're at with that 269 was actually higher than where they were in 2013, but it is still nowhere close. So if we were looking at 485 by the end of 2017 and they ended up at 269, I cannot find, I've talked with the gentleman who has helped us with rates in the past. He put together the slideshow, but he does not know where the numbers came from. He was given those by city staff who are no longer here. Right. And I cannot find, my staff has been looking for records for 2 days and can't find it.
That to me is a major challenge, that it didn't rise at the same level which our citizens' rates rose back in those days.
Yeah.
Mayor, can I ask him a question?
Yes.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
So do you disagree with my calculation? 875 times 5 CCF is 3,500 gallons, plus the 4 something, so it's about $50, right?
Yeah.
But your calculation, Arkoma citizens are going to pay $95.06.
And that's based on their current rate with the added. So yes.
So it's 3,000 gallons, and my calculation is 3,500. Y'all see what I'm trying to get to here? We're going to charge them $50 a household. They're charging their citizens $95. That is already covering the cost of their distribution lines, because they're paying $45 more per household under that calculation. Am I wrong?
No, your math is sound.
Okay. Because on the other side is, we don't have a tiered system. The
Correct.
people close to the treatment plants don't pay less than the people far away. We all share the cost equally. That's what I'm trying to get here, is it's a shared cost. The person living 2 seconds, a minute, half a mile from P Street pays the same rate as somebody out in your neighborhood. No difference. We all share the cost together. Just wanted to make sure we all got the math correct.
Okay, thank you. Director Rigo.
Lance, could you very briefly speak to, it's off the point that Director Settle just made there at the end, why is it that, unlike the water, which is tiered and based on usage and all this other stuff, why is the sewer rate shared equally?
The standard strength of wastewater to treat wastewater is about the same. There actually is a tiering mechanism, if you will. If you'll notice, there's a high strength for BOD, which is biochemical oxygen demand, and high strength for total suspended solids for industries. And when they get above 250 milligrams per liter, it takes more energy and more chemicals to treat, so we pass that cost on to them. So they are not being subsidized by households.
Are you aware of any communities, of any appreciable size that have their own system that do not approach sewer rates with a flat, equal structure?
Not in Arkansas. I do know of one that tried in California, and they did that for a period of, I believe, 5 years, and then they went back to a flat rate, and they based that on a household was this rate, a restaurant was this rate, this type of industry, but they had to do a lot of extra sampling. It was actually very costly to do the study, and to keep it legally defensible, they would have to continue to do the sampling and analysis, and they said it was more defensible to just do a flat rate, and they dropped that, and that was 7 years ago that they dropped it.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Are there any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, we need a motion. I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, call the roll. I'm sorry.
Director Settle,
No.
Martin,
Yes.
Rigo,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
George Katsavas? I'm sorry? Christina Katsavas?
No.
Motion passes, 5 in favor and 2 opposed.
We need a motion to adopt the emergency clause.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Directors Martin,
Yes.
Rigo,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
George Katsavas?
Yes.
Christina Katsavas?
No.
Settle?
No.
Motion passes, 5 in favor and 2 opposed.
Okay, Number 4.
Item 4 is a resolution authorizing the city administrator to submit application to the Community Noise Mitigation Grant Program through the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation. This program could provide up to nearly $10.2 million for sound attenuation improvements to existing dwellings in the defined noise contours around the Ebbing Air National Guard Base. At the public input sessions regarding the Military Compatibility Overlay District, many questions were asked about the impact of noise from the airbase on existing dwellings, and it was relayed that there could be federal dollars available for this purpose. This grant program is specifically what was contemplated with that response. The proposed resolution both authorizes the application and recognizes that if awarded, the city will be responsible for local matching funds equal to 10% of the federal grant funds received. It is anticipated that we will be notified of any grant award by August of this year. With that introduction, staff will stand for questions from the board.
Thank you. Are there any citizens' comments, Madam Clerk?
None indicating.
Okay, this time we'll entertain a motion to adopt the resolution as revised.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We'll entertain comments from the board at this time. Okay. Seeing Director Neil Martin.
So this money's not budgeted, is that right?
It is not, and frankly, if we go through the process and we are granted this, we have a five-year period to spend the money, and we were allowed to spread the matching funds, the $1.1 million that would be in matching over that five-year
For
period.
those 5 years. Okay, all right, very good, thank you.
Director Good.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I was just trying to get a lifesaver.
Okay. Are there any other comments from the board? Director Kemp.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to acknowledge that I did, when I first got into office, did get an email about when will residents be access to this. You know, they were hearing about how we got the dollars and we were able to benefit the schools, but they're like, when will the residents get this? And so I'm curious to see what the application process leads to. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have
Thank
any
you.
idea when we'll know, Jeff?
Hopefully by August.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other? Director Good.
Yeah, I will make a
Okay.
comment. You know, just recalling some of the public input meetings that we had. You know, we had, after the meeting, we had multiple households come to board members and staff, you know, requesting us applying for this grant as soon as possible. What these grants are going to be able to do is going to be allow them to have work done on their homes to mitigate some of the noise, like insulated windows, doors, change out doors, windows, insulation of walls, things of that nature. But this is definitely something that the citizens in these areas that are affected definitely wanted us to do. So we told them that we would get on this as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Directors Rego,
Yes.
Good,
Yes?
Kemp,
Yes.
George Katsavas.
Yes.
Christina Katsavas.
Yes.
Settle,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
It's approved, 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
We'll go to item 5.
Item 5 is an ordinance approving a private club license for 301 Garrison Avenue for a club that is relocating from 10th and Garrison to 3rd and Garrison. Chief Financial Officer Andy Richards will address this item.
Hello. We've got a request for transfer. This is a transfer of a private license. This business, which is, I guess it's called Heroes, was on 1002 Garrison Avenue, is putting in a request to transfer to a new location, 301 Garrison Avenue. And by state law, they have to go back and get their ABC license reapproved. And that process requires the city board's approval for a permit application. So that's why this is on the agenda tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any citizens' comments, Madam Clerk?
None indicating.
Need a motion to adopt the ordinance.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. Any comments from the board? Please call the roll.
Directors Good,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
George Katsavas.
Yes.
Christina Katsavas.
Yes.
Settle,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Rego.
Yes.
It's approved, 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
This time we'll go to the consent agenda. Mr. Dingman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. There are 5 items on this evening's consent agenda. We have a resolution approving the River Valley Communications Center operating budget for 2025 and establishing a director of the Director of Public Safety Communications. Resolution authorizing the renewal of the city's Microsoft Enterprise Agreement. Resolution authorizing assignment of the city's solar service agreements to Blue Path Finance. Resolution authorizing a change order to the contract for the Phoenix Avenue Street Overlay Project. And a resolution authorizing agreement with RDOT for infrastructure enhancements at Ebbing Air National Guard Base.
Okay, thank you. Is there any item on the agenda that you would like to have pulled
I'd like to
for
have
separate?
I'd like to question on C.
Okay, C?
I got a quick question on D and E.
Okay, C, D, and E. Are there any others? Okay, we'll go to C.
I guess my question, I don't know if you're going to be able to answer it, or Grant's team, or Jeff, but I know that recently the current administration in Washington, D.C. is starting to cancel a lot of energy grants like this. So my question is, has this grant been canceled? Is this grant still going on, or is there a chance this grant will get canceled?
Parker Higgs with Integrity. A couple things. First, these two specific projects are not related to the grant. These are the solar service agreements for OG&E and AVE that will be where you buy the power, you're not bringing any capital up front. The grant is only affecting the housing project. Josh, you want to speak to that?
And so holistically, the climate pollution reduction grant was paused as a part of the administrative order, but it was then opened back up in late February, and we have been active, and so has Metro Plan and NWA.
Is that part of that grant? Is this part of that?
No, sir. This is, so again, back in September, we did the full solar contract with Integrity for 3 different projects funded 3 different ways. These are the 2 large-scale solar arrays that we are going to be financing, and it will be financed through all the savings that will be generated from the solar arrays.
This is the $900,000 a year cost, right?
Up front, first will be $600,000, and yes, based on that, it could go up to $800,000
Yeah.
a year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to D.
D, just a quick question, Stan, and maybe even Lance on this one. The sewer work on this, I think this is sewer work. This is not consent decree related, correct? Or is it?
I believe at least 2 locations are.
It didn't, like, I guess I was looking at the header on the item, and it didn't have the green consent decree logo. So
Yeah, the 28th Street was some issues with some pipe we discovered during construction. They'll go ahead and replace. The other 2 locations are ones that came out as far as the consent decree. They're in the areas where we're working. We're trying to get them done while we're out there.
Okay.
Prior to school starting back.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that
Yes,
these
yes,
were.
yeah, at least 2 of them are, I know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
The other question, I think it probably relates to Stan for item E. The new signal on Phoenix that is being proposed through this funding, is that where, like it talked about the new, the northern entrance of the airport or the base, is that kind of that area where Sodi's is?
It's on past it. There's a driveway that goes in there now. They used to use it for fuel. There's a little building, but it's at the location that's showing up on that drawing. It's on past it, just to the south of where that Sam's Furniture is going.
So, okay, just south of Sam's Furniture? Oh, okay, I see what you're talking about, yeah. And Sodi's, if we looked at it on the map here, not that I know where that is, but where?
Sodi's would be on down,
Lee Avenue.
yeah, right there.
Okay, all right, I'm with you. Okay, oh, that makes sense. All right, I just wanted some clarification,
Okay.
thank you.
And E, any other comments? Was that it on E?
Mayor?
Yes.
We did have one individual to speak on item 6C, which is Joe Elskin.
Okay, Ms. Elskin, you recognize, I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to speak in encouragement for the fact that the 40% savings to the energy uses of the city is significant, and there's some, some improvements that can be made with that extra money. So I was just, happy that we're at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Okay. Okay, if there are no further comments, we need a motion to adopt all consent agenda items.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Directors Kemp,
Yes.
George Katsavas, Christina Katsavas.
Yes.
Settle,
No on C, yes on the rest of them.
Martin,
No on C, yes on the rest of them.
Rego,
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Motion passes 7 in favor and 0 opposed on all items with the exception of item 6C, which is 5 in favor and 2 opposed.
Okay, number 7.
Item 7 this evening is a discussion regarding future steps for appointment of Director of Internal Audit or the provision of internal auditing services. This item was added to the agenda at the request of the board.
Okay. Director Kemp.
Thank you, Mayor. Just simply, thank you for my colleagues that helped us get this discussion here. Really just simply put, per state law, the discussion of next steps that I think we wanted to talk about are not allowed to have in an executive session, that we have to have in a public forum. And I know that there are 2 potential options for us, and whether we did one or the other or even both. With the conversation of Baker Tilly, as Director Martin, you've advised that they've got some unique ideas for us, and love to hear your thoughts on that. And then also the board was emailed from a representative of DPI staffing offering their services at no cost except the cost incurred for job postings or travel costs to bring in a candidate or things of that nature, and did submit an agreement to us that we have, if that's something that we want to consider as a board. Also, professional staff services requires that we look at the statement of qualifications of other registered organizations. SGR is one of 5, and then DPI is one of the 5, and that would allow that there would be 3 others. And then the board, whether you had time to look at it, because I know I haven't looked over all of them myself, we did, Director Dingman did email us the statement of qualifications that we can review. But I definitely thought what we should do is either just appoint a liaison, if that was the approach we wanted to do, similar to what the board did with Director Martin being one for Baker Tilly, then perhaps we can do that with the conversation to report back to the board if we want to do the services. So I just put this here so that we could get a good, clear next step.
Director Neil Martin.
So I'll talk a little bit about on the Baker Tilly side. So, I voted against the Baker Tilly agreement way back when. I mean, it's 30 hours a month. It's not enough for them to really do significant amount of work. So I even expressed frustration to them during this process and then I went back and looked at the contract and realized it was 30 hours a month. And so we're not really getting the full breadth of Baker Tilly's expertise. One of the things that I think we've talked about is Baker Tilly offers outsourced audit services to cities around the country. The individual that I'm working with is basically the audit director for a city in Texas. So this is not foreign, this is not unknown to them. But we had our audit committee meeting beginning of May 1st, and in that there was a desire for me and one of the audit committee members, Ed Ralston, to sit down with our representative from Baker Tilly and just kind of talk a little bit about some of the things that I've already been communicating with Baker Tilly, but also let's kind of look forward and what it could potentially look like if we went with Baker Tilly. So what they're in the process of doing, and they sent, Mr. Dingman sent the board just kind of an overall scoping document of what the kind of services Baker Tilly offers. It's more of a more marketing material, but I think it kind of gives a broad view of what they do. But what we've asked of them is to come back to us with something a little more refined for the city. So look at potentially changing that contract to continue focusing on a risk assessment, provide X number of audits here in 2025, and maybe give us a block of hours, something like that, change the contract up a little bit. So, so they are working on that to be able to present that back to us. It's just not ready today. I have felt like Baker Tilly has a good breadth of knowledge. One of the selling points that they said to me when we first met was they have, and this is probably true of other audit firms, they have certain expertise. So they have individuals in their firm that are specific to IT or specific to utilities or something like this, so that we have a block of hours, or we would have hours in which they would perform audits, that they could pull specific individuals with specific expertise to be able to perform that particular audit, rather than just getting one person, two people, three people, whatever, to audit everything. They would be able to put specific expertise from an audit perspective in certain fields and disciplines to be able to have a better idea or have a good idea of how they need to audit this. What are best practices and those types of things. They also, obviously we want to go through the risk assessment process. It's been a while since we've had a risk assessment, so we want to go through that and continue to get that risk assessment to our department heads so that they can fill those things out, and then that would allow Baker Tilly to kind of focus their efforts in the audits that are most risk and the most critical. But I think this. At first, I was not for Baker Tilly doing this. Again, like I said, I voted against it. But I think there is an expertise factor if we don't feel that we've got a good opportunity to hire somebody really good on our side. We thought we did. That didn't turn out well. So this presents a good option for us. I want to get the more tailored contract to the board so we can look at it. I think that'll be coming out soon. But I think it offers us a unique opportunity. If we can't hire somebody that we feel is a home run on our side, it gives us an opportunity. And if we wanted to, we could hire them for a specific period of time, and we could do a number of different things. We could hire them for a specific period of time. We could say Baker Tilly is going to be our internal audit for the foreseeable future. We could do that. But if we have a challenge, if we think we might have a challenge hiring somebody internally, Baker Tilly is one that we could use, and they're also one that I think has a good level of expertise.
Thank you very much. Director Rigo.
Thank you, Mayor. As far as where we're going, next steps with the internal auditor, I certainly would like to see candidates for that position, new candidates. I would be very much open to working with DPI staffing on that pro bono basis to produce some candidates for us. I have no interest in working with the city HR department on this process for this position, and I would like to see some new candidates for us to consider prior to the end of July. Thank you, by some mechanism or other. Thank you.
Director Kemp.
Director Rigo, I just want to make sure you could know too, I did ask DPI staffing about a timeline of what they could expect. Like, is this going to take, how long of a time will this take before we could start seeing or expecting feedback? And they indicated that they would like to have 3 to 4 good candidates in 30 days. So they do seem like they want to be aggressive, obviously offering their services. They want to move and bring somebody good to the community, someone they can consider. I also favor this process because it leaves no ambiguity that this is a board hire, and therefore there is no ambiguous nature of anything we need to do to finalize the position. If the board has a candidate or several lists of candidates they could interview, it's the board communicating directly to a company and the company directly reporting to the board. So I prefer that route if that is the direction that we so feel led to go to.
Director Christina Casanis.
Well, I think DPI made us a very generous offer to do the search for free. I would like to see us focus on sites that are specific to auditors or accountants. I know there's, some kind of like a LinkedIn, but more geared towards that field, and that's where I think we should look. I was going through the DPI website today, and I did not see where they were working in this field for hiring. I saw maybe some security guards and things like that. I did not see where it was department heads or C-suite or anything that was that level.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further comments on this item?
I just have a quick question.
Director George Casavage.
Director Martin, the purpose of the board hiring an auditor was that the audit to not have any outside influence, correct? They answer to the board, only to the board?
Right, right.
So if Baker and Tilly gets involved in this, will that be the same parameters?
No, I mean,
See, that's what's worrying me.
right now, all they report to is me. The only interaction, and I mean, obviously, I'm not involved in the day-to-day operations of the city, but I think the only interaction is with Andy cutting a check. I don't know if Andy's here, but cutting a check. Is there any communication between the administration, any staff outside of our internal audit staff? Is there any communication with Baker Tilly?
Not through administration. Andy is here, and I think his
there he
answer is no as well.
But I agree with you. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I don't, if we hired Baker Tilly, I don't want any communication with, well, let me back up. I don't want any oversight from administration. Obviously, they're going to communicate through audits and meetings about audits and things they're looking for, but I mean, it would be a board hire. I mean, they would serve at the pleasure of the board. You want to answer that question about your
Any communication with them, Andy?
No. The only interaction I'm aware of is with Director Martin and then also our internal audit staff.
But we haven't actually hired them to do an audit on any particular thing, have we? City related?
We've hired them to supervise and help guide the internal audit staff that we have. And so I'm not, I've not been involved in the internal audit since, we got Baker Tilly involved to let them handle that.
The frustrating part about this, George, is the way the contract was written and the board agreed to. It's 30 hours a month. I mean, that's not even a week.
Yeah, and they charge us what, $100 and what?
$10,000.
A month.
$10,000
A month for 30 hours.
Yeah.
How much is that an hour?
It's high.
Kevin?
It's high. 300 something. Yeah. I mean,
It's pretty standard rate for a firm like that, yeah. It's similar to what we pay for our audit fees, the hourly rate that they were charging.
It's hard to get traction on 30 hours a month.
Okay.
But they were in the process of building the risk assessment, and then they would get the risk assessment out to all of the department heads and city administration to fill out so that they would get a better handle of where the risk points are, and then they would develop a audit plan.
Well, the city, that should have been brought forth to the last auditor. The city should be aware of that, the risk points from their last auditors.
I don't know when the last risk assessment was done. Was it before COVID? So it's probably been a while since we've done a risk assessment.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Director Kemp.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Question, Director Martin, do we have an idea, have they even spoken to a budgetary range of, if we're paying that much for the 30 hours, what it would look like to do the more robust agreement with them?
So I think 300,000, $500,000 was some ranges that were thrown out. If you go back and look at the budget for internal audit, it's more than that. I mean, it's roughly around 800,000, maybe. I think Kevin, are you looking it up? So I think it's more than that. But those were just some numbers that were thrown out. I don't know, I mean, they're just ranges thrown out. I mean,
Yeah.
until we see actual numbers.
And then on a question we were talking about a minute ago, I mean, I did pull the statement from the email we have from Acting City Administrator Jeff Dingman. DPI's statement of qualification talks about being around inception since 1971 and has worked with local, regional, state, and federal government agencies around the nation. Currently, they have government staff servicings in Oregon, Washington, Arizona, Maryland, Idaho, and Arkansas. So, I mean, they obviously have a background. Obviously, we can just see we lose nothing to try that route, in my opinion.
The internal audit budget, 607,000.
But I mean, so the 607 budget, but the contract cost, you know, what is it, 120,000 right now?
120.
Are you saying it could range up, maybe up to 300?
Yeah. I mean, that would be for a more robust
Okay.
audit services, like additional staffing. You know, and we could do it a couple of different ways. We have internal audit staff here now. They could help support and provide, some on the ground support for some of these audits. Baker Tilly could just do everything. You know, there's a number of different ways that we could go about it. But it's just, obviously I want to do what the board wants to do. I'm not for either one. I've got a better confidence level in Baker Tilly now that I've worked with them a little bit. But here's my only concern is getting true audit work done. How long is it going to take us to hire somebody and then get them up and running? So that's my only concern. Do we I want to think about if we hire somebody and let's say we got candidates in a month and we start interviewing, that takes another couple weeks, so you're 6 weeks out. Maybe they give 2 to 3 weeks, we're 2 months out, or 2 to 3 weeks for notice at their company, and we're 2 months out. We want to make sure Baker Tilly's doing some of the things we need to do in order to be able to hand that work over to this person. So I want to, no matter how we go, I want to make sure that we got good work from Baker Tilly until that point, or we decide to make Baker Tilly the one and we move forward with them.
So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, we do have 2 individuals to speak on this item.
Okay. First individual.
The first is Crystal Cadelli.
Good evening. Just the discussion alone is a little bit concerning to me. We waited over a year to find an internal auditor, and quite honestly, the hiring process, the way that it turned out, was extremely embarrassing to the city and city leadership. Our city administrator and our human resources director didn't follow protocols and procedures. They hid things from the board, and with little to no repercussions for it. And then we don't understand why our directors and department heads feel like they don't have to inform the board of anything because the board doesn't demand the respect of it. And you guys are representing our city. So whatever they do, it really reflects on you guys. And so, to be missing an internal auditor for a year and a half, there are checks and balances. We need them. I don't think that it should be a huge discussion on who we use to find one. I mean, I looked on the city website. There's not even a job posting for it. Put it on LinkedIn. I mean, put it out there
until you can decide if you want to use an agency to help you recruit, but you may not even need them. So, you know, my ask is to hold our city leadership accountable and to, you know, get the job posted and find us a good internal auditor. Thank you.
Next, we have Levon Morton.
I would just like to comment on the rate per hour. It works out to $333, I think, if you do the math. And I would say that's not an unusual rate, because the people that are working on our account are high-level people. And you can't get a new person out of college to do a risk assessment. It's got to be someone who's got experience with cities, like a high-level engineer or a high-level IT person, for example. So that's not a surprising rate to me. The other thing is the people that are reviewing the work of the two auditors we have on staff, and in theory they're reviewing that in detail, providing comments back to them for additional questions or additional documentation they need. Those are also very high-level experienced people. And I would hope, and I haven't seen any of this, and I've looked on the website to be honest with you, but the quality of the reports that you're going to get are going to be top level. And they're going to be thorough and complete when they're finished. So that's the only comment. The reason the rate is high is because you're getting really top-notch people. I am a little surprised that it's only 30 hours. I thought it would be more than that. So, and I agree with the idea that more hours would be more useful. But when you're getting top-level people, and they're not putting people in the field, which is good, I think, because our two people are, I think I know one of them fairly well, and she's very capable. The other one I don't know, but then they certainly know the city. So just that's my only comment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Levon. Director Christina Casavas.
So if DBI has the experience hiring people for government roles, I know you said they may potentially be putting it on job boards. Is that what your discussion was with them?
Yes, the discussion that we had presented, and I did ask Acting City Administrator Jeff Deeman as well, you know, if we were to do something like this, how could it work? And one of the things we did talk about was, he had mentioned, and I think it's good, that we would reimburse any posting. So if you have some websites that you want us to prefer to direct to get them to go to, that they would not incur that cost, we would, but that their labor for the process and helping us would not be billed.
So in the audit committee meeting, one of the more senior members had mentioned that there are sites, and I can't remember the name of them, but that are geared towards government auditors and things like that. That's kind of like a LinkedIn, but it's very specific to this field. So I think the important thing is going forward, administration needs to be left out of this completely, because it doesn't fall under administration.
I agree.
You know, they're next to each other on the org chart. So if we could come to some sort of agreement tonight, you know, with DPI not charging us, is that something that we can move forward with, or do we still have to do RFPs?
By state law, you still have to do RFPs.
Okay.
Well, I'd just say,
For professional services.
this is a professional service, so we have the statements of qualifications on file. We can certainly choose, out of the folks that have an SOQ on file, we can certainly choose the one that we feel is best qualified off of those SOQs. And, you know, price isn't supposed to be a part of it, but we have some local interest and such, and a vested interest, I would think, to participate in that project.
So I think tonight we should move forward with that, select a firm, and then see what they turn up while we're utilizing our Baker Tilly contract. But my question is, how do we do this as the board without involving administration?
I have a proposal, if I may. I would propose, say, you become our liaison to DPI Staffing Services, since you also have been privy to the knowledge that you've learned in the audit committee, and then you could lead the board in that effort, reporting back to us, and then leading us to an agreement. That would be my understanding, is that we need to just pick a liaison to get that process moving, so that we can actually now as a board have action and transparency amongst ourselves about what we have going. Is that correct? Thank you.
But I can't liaise with someone until we've officially gone through the RFP process, right?
We can choose a provider off of our SOQ list without going through the RFP process. We can do
Okay,
that
are
right
they
now.
on?
They are, yes.
Okay, so the board can make that determination tonight, that we could vote on that tonight.
Yes, and you have received the SOQs that we have on file, and you've been able to review the qualifications.
Can
of
that be
all
done
of
with a motion, Jeff?
them. Yes, it can.
Make a motion?
Wait, hold on just a minute. Director Rego and then Director Settle.
I withdraw.
Okay, Director Settle.
My only question to the board is, if we go down one path, should we go down both paths at the same time? So that way, if something happens with the first path, you got the second, because they still have to do what they're going to offer to us. Doesn't say we got to do it, but allow them to keep doing, come up with the plan, give it to Neil, and then we'd have option A, option B. But if you do one, fruition doesn't happen, then you got to go back and you're even delayed even more. So my suggestion is maybe go down both paths together, and that way, say this is, and then that way when you come to it, we can say, hey, we got 3 good candidates, great, let's go. We got no candidates at all, we got something we can look at as a board and say, hey, do we want to go down this path or not? Just both options at the same time, go concurrently, see what happens.
So my other question is, can we also, or should we also, as a board, direct HR, because we're leaving administration out of this, direct HR to post it on the city website in addition to the service and see what that turns up?
We can do that.
Well, I'd like everybody's thoughts on it.
I mean, also, I would say so, and the only thing I would ask, though, maybe is that where we direct them to take care of that for us and report to us, or if something happens to activity-wise at that website, how are they getting that information in a timely manner?
All resumes directed to the board of directors is what I would suggest.
There we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Any further discussion?
I'm in favor of both.
So
Go on both paths.
Is there a motion?
make a motion to
So we make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we mobilize Director Martin to pursue continued conversations with Baker Tilly on a new proposal. And then can I add on to this?
Mhm.
And it's also simultaneously, Director Christina Casavas, do you have interest in this?
No.
Okay. Then
If
I,
nobody else will do it, I'll do it.
I'm happy to do it, but I thought if you have a website
she'll
that,
do it. She'll do it.
but it doesn't matter. One of
I
us.
don't. I believe it was brought up at the audit committee meeting. I don't know if we had a specific website, but this is some, do you remember that? It may have been Deanna mentioned it, that there are websites specifically
Well, I
for
think
So then,
government auditors.
in that vein, continuing on with my motion beyond Director Martin being the liaison to get us an agreement with Baker Tilly, I will nominate myself to get with the audit committee and also the board and also DPI staffing to mobilize their efforts as well.
Okay, very good.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay,
Did you, in your motion, instruct HR to post it on job sites?
I did not. And I would
Make it.
thirdly like to ask that the HR department post the job posting on the city website as well.
okay. Anything further?
Good with that, Director Martin, for the second?
Point of inquiry, Ms. Gard, did you capture in the discussion to fold into the motion, because you always do a good job of capturing the fuller context, Director Settle's point about that all resumes received via the city website should be directed to the board of directors?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I think too, we should discuss setting a budget for the job postings. I know there's a fee associated with those. Do we need to set a budget for that? I don't want it to be unlimited.
I agree with you. Perhaps I could report back to acting city administrator so that he can email the board a suggested proposal from them, because I don't know what would be appropriate within that regard too. At the same time, I think we can get that from them and see if we're agreeable to that.
But we're leaving city administration out of it. So I think that's something we have to figure out on our own.
To that point, we just have to also make sure we abide by the public meeting rules and things. Is there a number that you have proposed?
Rick, could you know how much these job postings cost? Could you speak to that? I believe we spent about $2,000 when we searched, when the AMP was searching for a new director. I believe it was about $2,000, and it turned up about 15 candidates that we then, we whittled down to about like a top 5, and we did Zoom interviews.
Yeah, a lot of the places where the job will be posted are free, but there are some that are more specific to the area of discipline that you're talking about, internal audit, that will cost. And I believe you're correct, it was in the $2,000 some range is what we paid in the past for this. So depending on where the board decides to advertise, some of those may be free, some of those may not be, and the pricing could range, a broad range, but again, $2,000 or a little over, I think, is the number would be what we have paid in the past.
Okay.
What would be a top number? So that way we could say within that number.
For the entire, all advertising you're talking about? For
Yeah.
if you advertise in 10 places, how much that number would be?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you could probably get it for $3,000 because, again, a lot of them will be free. And a lot of that, too, depends on the ones you pay for. How long do you want the ad to run? The posting to be up there. So a lot of it's going to depend on what the board decides. And I think if you go with the $3,000, and then if you see that it's going to be more than that, obviously you can address that as a board.
Okay.
But I'd say start out with $3,000 may be a good place to start.
Okay, thank you very much.
So we will choose DPI as our search firm. They're offering their labor for free, and we can authorize them for up to $3,000 in ad spend.
I was just going to make a point, which we can obviously come back to and amend as we talked about. But if we do need to bring a candidate here, a finalist, there's a budget there as well. You have travel expenses and that nature, and we can obviously come back and report to that, or we could pick a not to exceed number as well. That's another approach as this as well. But I'm also amenable to at least getting this started, yes, not to exceed the.
And these funds, I'm assuming, would come out of the internal audit budget. Is that correct? Okay. Sure. Thank you.
What's the number for your motion?
Well, I was communicating with this representative already, and the only thing that they made clear was just approval for any desired job board postings, or if you all want to arrange travel to and from Fort Smith. So,
Put a not to exceed, and we can always change it every meeting.
what if we say not to exceed $5,000?
Okay. You second it?
We can start there.
I second that.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's part of the motion.
Madam Clerk, are you good?
Just to clarify,
Okay.
the motion is to nominate Director Martin to continue negotiations with Baker Tilly, correct? Okay. Second, the nomination is to nominate Director Kemp to proceed with the services, to consider the professional services route, to consider those 5 statements of qualifications. Is that correct? No? No, to go with DPI, okay. And third was to direct the Human Resources Department to post the job description and the posting on the city's website, with inclusion that the resumes are to be submitted directly to the Board of Directors, correct? And then fourth on the motion was that the cost is not to exceed $5,000.
And Director Martin will work with Baker Tilly getting a proposal with them.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
The price for DPI was not
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else on this item? Okay, Madam Clerk?
Okay. Directors George Katsavas,
Yes.
Christina Katsavas,
Yes.
Settle,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Rigo,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Kemp.
Yes.
Motion passes 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Okay, thank you very much. This time we'll go to the officials forum. I don't have any item this evening. We'll start with Director Neil Martin. Anything, sir?
Well, I got handed the ACFR, the preliminary ACFR. So I'm excited to look at this. This is our audit. This is a draft, I'm assuming. I think we'll be meeting with our external auditor, Forvis, who does our audit, comprehensive financial audit, in the next couple of weeks. So this is good. It's good. I think there's some good things in here that the people will be excited about.
Okay, thank you. Director Settler.
Thank you, Mayor. I know some people in the public know this, but some people don't. You know, part of foreign military sales is other countries are coming here. This week, Greece was here. So, you know, this project that we started and the community has done is not going to be just 4 or 5 countries. It's going to blossom. And so having a country like Greece here is kind of neat and is very good. So I think it just shows you that the city's moving forward. We've got a little good momentum, and we can continue moving that way. Okay. Thanks, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. Director Christina Savage.
Sherry, did you say that since my motion failed, it'll be placed on the next regular meeting?
That's correct.
Okay. So since we did not get an opportunity to discuss that tonight, I would just like to say that I believe we've centralized too much authority in the city administrator, and I believe it's created a power imbalance. You know, I'm very focused on preventing cronyism and bias. I feel like the previous administrator structured this city to where department heads were competing for favoritism and there was fear of retaliation. And, you know, we're not an advisory board. We're a policy-making board here, and I believe having control of hiring and firing department heads creates better policy alignment and execution. Department heads must implement the board's vision and direction, and I believe this would only serve to enhance policy execution, and I suppose we'll be talking about that more at the next meeting. I know that there have been statements made that you know, the board can't take that power to do that. I don't believe that's accurate. I have a legal opinion that says that we certainly can. And if you look at Arkansas Code 14-48-117, it says, to the extent that such authority is vested in him or her through ordinance enacted by the board of directors, he or she may supervise and control all administrative departments, agencies, offices, and employees. So it's to the extent that we grant that authority. So by ordinance, you know, we can revoke that authority and create authority. And I know we'll have that discussion later on, but I just wanted everyone to know that that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Okay. Director George Casavage.
Nothing, sir.
Director Kemp.
Thank you, Mayor. On May 15th, we were all still working really hard on other items that we had for discussion, but the board was emailed a city property list that went through several different departments where they could prioritize for us properties that we could look and list for sale if the board so felt directed to do so. I would like to make a motion to put that on our next study session so that we can see that as a board and make action decisions.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Director Good. Nothing, Mayor. Director Rego. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Dingman.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing from me is just a reminder that next week's study session will be at the University of Arkansas Fort Smith in the Reynolds Room on June the 10th.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. If not, at this time, we're going to convene into an executive session, and is for the purpose of evaluation of the acting city administrator. Okay.